but he's never felt like he's comfortable in his own skin at Liverpool. He always feels like he's, one bad thought from just throwing in an absolute stinker. And unfortunately, it most likely means we have to cut bait. And that's fine. Sometimes transfers don't work, and we've been fortunate over the last 10 years that far more transfers have worked than haven't. But sometimes they don't work. And the thing to do is to cut bait and run, not play it out. One of the worst things we did was keep Naby for his whole contract and let him go on a free. We should have sold him in 2021 and taken whatever, or even after the 2022 season, when he'd had a good year, we should have taken whatever we could rescue out of that and moved him on. He didn't work out because of injuries. Ox didn't work out because of injuries. We had offers to sell Ox. We didn't. Emre left on a free. We could have sold him a year before. We had an offer from Juventus, widely reported. We didn't. He leaves on a free. We should have sold Mane earlier. We should have sold Bobby earlier. We should have sold Fabinho earlier. We should have sold Henderson years earlier. We should have sold Lallana earlier. We should have sold Lovren earlier. We should have sold Ginny a year earlier. If he wasn't going to be kept, we should have sold him. We are in a position where, because of the way our ownership wants to operate, we have to be self-sustaining or as close to as possible. And that means not being sentimental, not allowing players to just be at the club because reasons, and not keeping players around when they clearly haven't worked out. This summer, I would like to really see the beginning. And look, I know people are going to say, oh, but we're top of the league. And we are, and that's great. But it's one season. You know what I want to do next season? I want to win the league. And you know what I want to do the year after? I want to win the league. And the year after that, win the league. We're taking advantage of a down season for City. We're taking advantage of Chelsea not being ready. We're taking advantage of Arsenal being Arsenal, the specialists in failure. But nobody would look at this Liverpool team this year and say, well, they're as good as City were at their apex. They're as good as the first City team was at its apex. They're as good as Klopp's Liverpool was at its apex. Nobody would compare them. You just wouldn't. This Liverpool team is very good with some great players that elevate the level. But we need to ensure that when City bounce back, when Villa continue to grow, when Chelsea are ready, when Arsenal finally get some real winners in the room, that we can continue to have success. Because I don't want to be sitting here in 4 years talking about Arne Slot and saying, well, it's great that he won a league title in year 1, but now year 4 is over. We haven't won one in 3 years, and we don't look like winning one again. Because that's kind of how it got with Jurgen. I know people will say we could have won the league last year. Yeah, but we weren't going to. And in 21-22, remember how that season actually went in the Premier League. City were well ahead and slowed down. We caught up with them, but we were never ahead of them, even though we had a better team than them at the time. Some weeks, other weeks not so much. We didn't feel like we were going to win the league. It felt like, well, if they continue to slip up, then we can win the league. But either they're going to hand it to us or they're going to win it. It wasn't a thing where we were going to take it. We were always relying on them to slip up. Whereas 18-19 didn't feel like that. It felt like a real head-to-head. And 19-20, we blew them out the water. 2021 was a disaster. 21-22 was good. 22-23 was a disaster. And last season, it did always feel a little bit... It felt like Jurgen's decision to leave was going to inspire us to win a title. Like we were going to get this storybook ending. But with hindsight, you look at the injuries we had, and it just... There's nobody that was going to be able to win the league going through what we went through last year with those injuries. And then losing Mo, and then Mo coming back and not being nearly the Mo that we're used to, was just never going to happen. So you don't want to get there with Arne. You want to continue to have real success. Because ultimately, we underachieved with Klopp. One title, one Champions League, not enough for that team that we had, that squad that we had in 18-19 and 19-20, and what it was on the brink of becoming if we continued to follow the same model that had built that squad. But we didn't. And we didn't cash in on the fact that we were the best team in Europe for probably 18 months. And some of that was that players got too comfortable. It felt like they'd somehow achieved everything there was to achieve. You see it all the time, this won the lot stuff. It's all nonsense. Loads of players have won the lot and then gone and won it all again. That's how real winners act. Win it and then go win it again. Forget that you've won it already, because it doesn't count for anything in your playing career. At the end of your career, then you can sit back and admire your medals. But while you're playing, try and win as many of them as you can. And we underachieved under Jurgen, one league title, one Champions League. Simple as that. And we want to be more ruthless now. There is an opportunity here because, look, City are spending money. People are getting all excited. Well, City are going to be back next year. They're going to dominate for years to come. Based on two central defenders you'd never heard of a week ago. And arguably the most overhyped forward in Europe. And what else? Andrea Cambiasso, he's good left back. He's a 30 million left back. City are looking at paying 60 million for him. Oh, but Haaland signed a 9.5-year contract. It's overly meaningless. It is overly meaningless. Does anyone actually think Erling Haaland is going to play out that contract? Not a chance. He'll either sign a new one in two or 3 years, or he'll be gone. The 9.5 years thing, it's just for headlines. It's just for headlines. And what it means is, if they get punished as they should, and they go down, they'll just loan him out for a couple of years. Then they'll have him back. They'll give him a big new deal. This new deal is where you're going to pay him over £1 million a week. He's one of the most limited footballers in the league. He's Chris Wood with better PR and more pace. What are we worried about? What are we worried about? Two centre-backs you hadn't heard of a week ago. Great. Doesn't fix their horrendous age profile of their squad. There's an opportunity for us. If we make the right moves in our squad, including moving on players like Darwin and Diogo Jota, there's an opportunity for us to build a squad that can win 3 of the next 5 Premier Leagues. There really is. There's not going to be dominance like we've seen. Pep's not staying past 2027. If he's still there in 2027, I'd be mildly surprised. I think part of the Pep contract was so that they could tie Haaland down to a new one and get him to remove his release clause. because that was all tied together. We just need to get back to being the club we were that built the team that won the Champions League in the league. That club, the way we operated then, there was a ruthlessness to a lot of what we did. And we need to get back to doing that. We need to be less sentimental than we were in that run, though. And when mistakes happen, and unfortunately Darwin Nunez will be ultimately tagged as a mistake in the transfer market, you need to be able to say, you know what, fair enough, didn't work. Best of luck. We go a different direction, you go a different direction. I got onto this by talking about tomorrow's game with Brentford and whether you play him or Dan's. And I actually, at this point, I'm sorry to say, I think I would trust Jayden Dan's more. I think I would. But I think you've got to play Darwin, because otherwise you are literally saying to him, go now. And you're telling other clubs, this guy's got no future here anyway. So why would anyone give you the big money? All of a sudden, that 70 million offer that we turned down turns into a 40 million offer because he's your fourth choice number 9.